Holy f***. Holy f***.
You little
Holy f***. Thanks for the 20 bandos.
He just clipped you 30K.
Yo.
You may believe you're looking at an innocent 13-year-old kid, but best believe you just watched him scam hundreds of grown adults out of their money, using the most insane method ever to rack up over $60,000 in just 2 hours. And the craziest part is that after doing this, he not only laughed in their faces, but due to the method was able to escape with no legal consequences. But how is this even possible? And how did a literal kid manage to convince hundreds of working men and women to give him their hard-earned money? Well, the story is actually a lot deeper, darker, and more insane than you would think. And there's no better place to explain all of this than where it all started. When 8th grader Griffin was restless in his middle school classroom because he was obsessed with the idea of making money. Despite his young age and even though he wasn't poor, his brain constantly looked for new ways to make more, regardless of the method. He started reselling sneakers, buying them at retail and flipping them for profit. And for a while it worked, but the market easily became oversaturated, and just like that, his profits were gone. And being back at square one, Griffin was now looking for the next thing. But little did he know, the next discovery would change his life. The next discovery would come through a friend, because Griffin knew somebody who had been living the life he wanted. Somebody at the same age with more money than he knew what to do with. And one day, that friend told him that his method was something called cryptocurrency. Griffin didn't know much about it, but he had at least heard of Bitcoin and knew that it wasn't just some easy get-rich-quick scheme. But the thing is, his friend wasn't just trading regular old crypto. He was in a specific corner of the genre where money moved faster. The gains were wilder, and the whole thing was so insane that you could literally, and I'm not exaggerating, make millions in one night. The opportunity was called meme coins. Now, meme coins are exactly what they sound like. It's literally a virtual currency based on a meme. And what I mean by this is basically back in 2013 when Bitcoin just came around, somebody created another coin as a joke and slapped a picture of a Doge meme on it again to emphasize the fact that it was a joke. However, with the insane rise of popularity, some people actually got the bright idea to invest their money in it. And because of all the people that started investing, well, this joke coin actually started to hold some value. And lo and behold, once this reached social media, the whole thing blew to insane proportions, skyrocketing to a value of over $62 billion and turning some of the earliest investors into millionaires. And when Griffin heard this, his eyes lit up. The formula was simple. You find a coin when it's early. If it looks like it's gonna blow up, you invest, and then you sit back and watch your money grow in a matter of minutes. The only thing you needed to remember to do, which could ruin everything if you messed it up, was that the second you even think the market is gonna go down, you pull out every cent of your money. Because the downside of meme coins is that they crash extremely quickly, and if you don't pull out your profits in time, your money will crash with it right back down to $0. But that seemed easy enough, right? There's no way that this could backfire, and Griffin knew with full confidence that if his friend was doing it, he could definitely do it too. And so of course, that very same night, he went straight home to set up his first crypto wallet and loaded it with $25. Immediately, he started trading, and the coin he took interest in was called LeBron James. It was part of a meme at the time where basically a lot of meme coins were named after celebrities with brain-rotted names. And since the Donald Trump and Joe Biden coins had risen to almost $1 billion with just that idea, I don't know, LeBron James seemed like it was gonna go to the moon. So of course, Griffin took his money and bought in quick. The coin was only about $100,000 value at the time, which by the way, meme coins are valued based on how many people buy into them and how much they're investing. So the super big ones are in the billions while the small ones are in the thousands. But of course, this was the best time to buy in because it was early. And so once he put his 25 into that coin, it was no surprise when it started to grow. And the second he saw even $1 was gained, he immediately got excited and threw in another $23. And after just 2 hours of looking at the screen, he watched his pocket change double into $94 whole. For somebody his age, this was a crazy amount of money to make just like that. And in his sheer excitement, as if he had just discovered an infinite money glitch itself, Griffin wondered if $44 could become $94 in 2 hours, what would happen if he put more? So despite doubling his money, when he could have easily pulled out his profits and went home a happy man, he decided to stay in the market and put in another $91 of his personal savings. And it was in that moment that he watched the coin climb from $100 $100,000 all the way to $580K, over 5 times its worth. And just like that, Griffin's money also grew by 5 times with it. And so he now had a mind-boggling $374 just like that, some people's weekly salary. His brain literally melted as he could not fathom what was happening in front of his eyes. He knew that it would be smart to exit soon, but even though meme coins die fast, they'll at least take a couple of days to do so. And so as far as he was concerned, his money was safe for now. And if he could make this much in just a few hours, imagine after a couple of days. But of course, if something feels too good to be true, it probably is. Because it was the very next day when he would wake up and expect to see thousands of dollars in his account that every single person who had invested in LeBron James would wake up to see that their account was now at zero. Once Griffin opened his eyes and looked at his account, his heart stopped. No, yes, he probably could have taken his profits and exited, but something was wrong. There is no way that a coin with that much hype and that many investors could just naturally die like that in a few short hours. It didn't make any sense, and that was when the dark truth was revealed. The people who had created LeBron James had purposely waited until the coin was at the most value they could possibly squeeze out of everybody's belief. They pulled out every single ounce of the money for themselves, stashed it in their bank account, and dipped, leaving the market to crash and leaving all of the investors broke as hell. This would become Griffin's introduction to what was known as a rug pull. And yes, if it wasn't already obvious, this is a scam. And of course, Griffin was furious. But on top of his anger, there was something else that would develop. The realization that most crypto users never come to, as they keep on gambling their money on meme coins hoping to become millionaires without any actual success. But Griffin had realized that it was actually possible to win in this game, but just not by being the gambler, but instead the one with all the power. And it wouldn't be long before he would take that realization to the next level. A couple of months would pass and Griffin would actually try his hand a few more times at a few more coins just to see what would happen. But of course, it never resulted in anything but losses, as he lost over $1,000 just hoping that something would work out. But the most brutal part about it was that almost all of his losses came from more scammers pulling the rug and running off with his money, giving him further temptation for the dark ideas that had been building in his head. Coincidentally though, it was around this same exact time that a platform called pump.fun was becoming the biggest thing in the meme coin space. You see, it used to be extremely complicated to set up your own coin. I mean, it's legit a whole currency for crying out loud, and not only that, but you needed to have lots of money to even think of doing that. However, with this platform, their whole selling point was that anybody could create and launch their own meme coin for just $3. And because it used to be so hard to make a coin, it was typically the same small circle of rich people that ran the same scams over and over again with no one to stop them and no competition. But pump.fun blew that door right open. And on top of the fact that many people were now able to make their own coin, something unique about this platform was present that would change the entire space forever. It introduced built-in protections that made it impossible for the traditional rug pull to ever happen. For regular investors, it finally felt like someone had leveled the playing field, and no, they weren't just mindlessly gambling with their money, they actually had a chance of winning. And upon this grand discovery happening, Griffin was actually able to quiet down the dark voices building up in his head. As much as he had still decided that he was done trying to be the gambler and that being the owner of a coin was still far more profitable, he decided that since the game was fair now, he would actually give it an honest attempt and not slip into darkness. He would be one of the good coin owners and not become like the people who ruined his situation by stealing his money. However, there was just one problem. Just like anything else in human history, people will always find a way. And best believe it didn't even take that long for somebody to find a loophole into the system. You see, the anti-rug pull rules said that you could not manipulate things after the coin was launched, so nobody could just steal everyone's invested capital and run off into the sunset. However, the rules did not say anything about before. And so what that basically meant was that before the coin ever went live, you could pretty much do anything to it with no regulation. But how is this helpful to stealing people's money? Well, what the coin owners started doing was that before their coin would ever go public, they would be the first one to ever invest into their own coin and buy loads and loads and loads of the shares, basically owning the majority of the market for themselves. Of course, they would do this silently without telling anybody. And so once they would launch the coin and start promoting it and people would start investing their money, the value of the massive shares the owner had previously purchased would go from worthless to start being worth something, then a lot, then a lot. And once they were now satisfied with how much their massive investment had grown into, they would just pull out everything. Now, if you don't really understand economics, this may not sound that bad. You invest, it goes up, you exit, that's pretty normal, right? However, However, picture this. If every American citizen right now sold all of their USD and bought Jamaican dollars, well, the US dollar would have no value because nobody owns it anymore. But what happens when it's not an entire country discarding their currency, but instead one you who owns majority of the currency because you bought it long ago, and you who owns like 95% of the value decides to exit with everything? Well, the market is going to crash, and every single person who had invested is going to have their money turned into worthless nothing. Essentially, well, pulling out the rug from under them. And so this new method would become rug pulling 2.0. And since this specific method did not involve the direct theft of anybody's money, it was very hard to actually make this a legal matter. And so people were just getting away with it. And so Griffin watched as the community he gained hope for started to die once again, infected by this cancer. But as much as it was becoming more tempting to go to the dark side, still, he refused to turn into one of those people who hurt him so deeply. And so when he launched his first ever coin called Kid, he once again stuck to the idea that he was going to be an honest developer. And that is exactly what people came to know him for in his community.
Today's day one of working on my meme coin every day until it hits $1 billion in market cap.
He was the one owner who actually stuck around, built something real, and proved that not everybody in the space was just there to take your money. It was around this time that he would start to try to grow a following on social media, becoming a streamer. And he would film himself introducing the coin to the world, explaining that he was a kid who had lost everything getting scammed and was trying to make a difference in the community, doing this with the last $20 in his pocket.
I launched this coin because I lost all my money getting rug pulled and scammed in the meme coin market.
He made the commitment publicly that he was not going to pull out a single dollar of his investment until the coin reached a value of $10 million minimum. He was putting himself at risk just to show that he was not a rug puller, and he wanted to make a difference. And of course, the people loved it. The story, the vulnerability, and his authenticity were real, and within just 12 hours of the coin launching, he had garnered so much support that the coin had climbed to nearly $500,000 in value. And he had a long-term goal in mind where he didn't want this to just be some meme coin for a week. He wanted it to actually become a legitimate cryptocurrency that people could invest in the long term and make money. And it genuinely looked as if it might work, because for a moment, Griffin let himself believe that after everything he had been through, this was finally the turning point. He wouldn't be broke anymore, and he could finally achieve his dreams the honest and legal way. But unfortunately, it was at this moment of his high hopes peaking that his dreams would be crushed right before his eyes. Whether it was due to his young age or other opportunities popping up, people's belief in Griffin had started to dwindle. And once belief starts to fall, people pull their money out of the coin. And once people saw one person pull out their money, the moment that chart even looked like it was going to inch downwards, the usual paranoia of meme coins kicked in. And one by one, every single person started to sell as the line crashed faster and harder, dipping down every second. It was as if Griffin was watching his entire village burn down. No matter what he did to try to save it, jumping on every live stream he could find, personally pleading his case to anyone who would listen, and even investing more of his own money into the coin just to try to make it look like it was going up. But no matter how much he did, the chart just kept plummeting down faster. And just as fast as it rose up, the coin had plummeted to become absolutely worthless. The plan had failed, and while Griffin's goal was to hit $10 million on his coin, 15 days after all of his hard work, the market value of the Kidcoin was now at just $8,000. His soul was obliterated. And while he was upset about the money, the failure was deeper than that. Because although he had lost his investment, the thing that hurt him the most was that he had tried his hardest to do everything right this time. He had been honest, he had been transparent, and most importantly, he put himself on the line for everybody else's sake. But in the end, people prioritized their own pockets over believing in his dream and left him with nothing. And it was in this coincidental moment that a twisted, dark moment would take place. Griffin just so happened to be scrolling through his transaction records just to see where it all went wrong and what he could have possibly done differently. And that's when he found something that made him go completely still. Back when the coin was still growing and he was promoting it left, right, and center, the little $20 he had invested at the start as the owner, at the coin's peak, had actually grown to become worth a whopping $2,200 just for him. And this figure made his eyes bulge out of his head. Yes, the coin had been valuable, but he himself had only invested $20. As a meme coin gambler, putting in 20 would most grow to 40, 50, maybe more if you were lucky. 2,200 just because he was an owner now? A 130 times return on the money he put in was absolutely mind-boggling. And so he wondered to himself, What if it wasn't just $20 he put in? What if it was 50 or even 100? What if he had put in a crazy amount of money at the start when it was worth nothing, and then when everyone had invested in the coin, he pulled it all out and ran off into the sunset? How much money would that be? He quickly ran to his calculator and put in the figures and realized that if he had done $100 instead of 20, he could have walked away with $13,000 in his hand. And it was while his head was spinning looking at the screen and all the months of past trauma from getting scammed had flickered through his brain that he realized that the game was simply just rigged. Trying to do things the right way would just result in more losses, and wallowing in depression and self-pity as he was now, and he was done losing. And it was in that moment of realization that he decided he would not give up, but instead play the game from the other side. It was further down the line on the day of November 20, after many days of bouncing back from his losses and careful planning, that Griffin would return to the community and launch his second coin ever called Gen Z Quan. And he knew that this time he was not here to pull any punches. Before anyone could ever see it, before the coin went live, Griffin invested a whopping $353 worth of money for himself, more than 15 times the amount of the $20 he put in last time. And after this, he went live to his audience and started talking on camera about the plans for the new coin. And let me just say this right now, Griffin had something that no amount of technical knowledge could replace. He was genuinely entertaining, he was funny, real, and people didn't feel like they were getting a sales pitch. And so as he would gain more fans and more people in his audience, the coin of course started gaining traction almost immediately. Within just a few minutes of launch, it looked like it was already on the way to the moon, and Griffin's audience believed so heavily in this project that they were investing a lot of money, and the market value of the coin was moving to nearly $2 million. With all the promises Griffin was making, so many people would get excited and keep believing that this coin would go to the moon, and just like that, the value reached 5 million, then 10 million. But of course, as Griffin saw the coin go up, he knew that he could not make the same mistake as last time. And when he went to go and check his account for how much the $353 was now worth, best believe the account said that his money was now worth $30,000. An absolutely mind-boggling amount of money that this kid had never physically seen in his life. And it was with this mind-altering realization that with not a single second of hesitation, Griffin hit that button and immediately pulled out everything out of the coin. $30,000 had now been added to his bank account just like that. And since this was all on live, the reaction clip spread across the internet within hours.
Holy
You little
thanks for the 20 bandos.
He just clipped you 30K.
Yo,
Not!
Griffin on camera, completely unraveling, watching his balance in real time as the number hit 30K. The laughter, the disbelief, the slight appearance of guilt that clearly did not slow him down for long. The crypto community saw all of it. But if you thought he was done, you would have another thing coming. After the insane reaction to what he just did, on the live, Griffin put on an appearance and he said, "Oh no guys, I'm sorry, that's not something I would ever do." And so when the people thought that, they just said, "Oh, he was clearly joking." Well, thank God he would never actually do this to us. And so 7 minutes later, Griffin would launch another coin called I'm Sorry. And so as people started to invest into this one, they thought that this was the real coin. But unfortunately for them, as soon as everybody had reinvested into I'm Sorry, Griffin would sell everything yet again and walk away with another $12,000 in his account.
Wow, yo, it's nuked. Why is it nuked?
Holy, yo.
That's 42 grand in just 15 minutes. 2 coins and 2 rug pull schemes, and every buyer left with nothing. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but you would really think by now the audience would have wised up, but they did not. And 5 minutes later, literally 5 minutes, Griffin launched a third coin on stream. This one he named after his dog Lucy and went live with the dog sitting right next to him. And I don't know if people still thought he was trolling or not, but for some reason they kept giving him their money. And once this coin would hit a market value of $1 million, Griffin would sell yet again, adding another $19,576 into his account. Just 36 minutes had passed since the first coin launch and Griffin had already made $61,000. Some people's yearly salary from an actually good job. Of course, the internet imploded and Griffin's face was all over crypto Twitter within the hour. And as much as this level of virality probably made him feel like a celebrity, the anger of the people was not something to be taken lightly. People were furious in a way that went beyond the usual social media outrage. I kid you not when I say they tracked down this kid's personal information. Within minutes, Griffin's pictures, family info, and even address were posted all over social media, and people even started coming to his house. But since they couldn't get access to him, somebody actually ended up kidnapping his family's dog, and the consequences had started to get real. However, whether because the crypto space is mostly full of nerds, or because it was genuinely hard to access this kid outside of home or school, or maybe they just didn't want to go to jail, nobody actually broke into his house. And so the retaliation eventually ended up back online, somehow getting even more insane, with the entire crypto community coming together and doing something that you would have never expected to happen. They literally went all the way back into Griffin's original coin and started flooding it with investments, pumping the price higher and higher out of pure spite, just so that Griffin would have to sit down from the sidelines and watch exactly what he walked away from. Out of their anger, they pushed that coin to over $15 million in value, which is far more than Griffin ever did, and even more than the goal he had for himself when he was trying to do it in the right way, as they constantly rubbed it in his face what he was now missing out on. But even though the message was felt, it didn't matter. Griffin had still walked away with over $64,000 under his belt in less than 2 hours. Money that some people literally have to work years to attain. And like I said before, the craziest part is that as much as this is scamming, because meme coins are very difficult to take legal action over, he could do this publicly in front of thousands on stream and still not go to jail. That money is actually now all for him. And to be honest, as much as he did scam people and he did wrong, I can't completely sit here and pretend like the people investing were not completely and totally brainless. If a 15-year-old who has scammed you before is telling you he can make you rich, I don't think believing him is the smartest choice to make with your money. And maybe you don't deserve to have any, I'm just saying. But the way how they kept believing in him even after he scammed them to their faces makes me feel like most of the people in this community are just a different version of gambling addicts. And the same way people feel about the casinos is probably how they feel about meme coins, which is actually pretty sad in the end. But there's actually another kid who puts Griffin's crypto scam to shame. Another teenager who, while he was still in high school, managed to steal over $238 million in one single night of scamming. And I'm not talking about crypto rug pulling. He actually stole this from another individual person. And if you want to learn the story of Malone Lam, click the video on your screen right now. Subscribe to the channel for more true crime content. And as always, this case has been decoded.